Doe number 20, having occurred on October 5th, 1976 in the County of Sacramento, violation of Penal Code Section 261, false imprisonment in Jane Doe number 20 and John Doe number 13, age 3, on October 5th, 1976 in the County of Sacramento, violation of Penal Code Section 236. Is there any victim or victim's family that wishes to be heard as to that uncharged act?
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
My name is Jane Carson Sandler. And DeAngelo, I want you to look at me. I want you to look at me, DeAngelo, and I want you to remember what I have to say. First, I want to say, glory be to my Lord Jesus Christ for sustaining me with his peace, his love, his strength, and power over the last 44 years. Yes, DeAngelo, it's been 44 years. On October 5th, 1976, when you broke into my home in the early hours, just after my husband had left for work, and you shoved your knife into my neck, you bound my wrist and ankles, you blindfolded me, and then gagged me with a cloth. Remember that? But you also did the same to my precious 3-year-old son. How dare you? Then you repeatedly threatened to kill us. The fear escalated when you started tearing sheets and cloths, and I had no idea what you were planning to do with all that cloth. Strangle us, maybe? Yes, I was frozen in fear beyond description. My attention was not on the rape, but fully on where did you put my son when you removed him from the bed? Where did you put him? And what were you going to do to him? I even wrote a book, Frozen in Fear, detailing my journey after my assault. I tried to escape my fear with alcohol, but medicating myself did not work. However, that experience brought me to finding the Lord, so it was worth it. He performed a miracle and relieved me of my addiction. I may have been one of your victims, DeAngelo, but you know what? Now I'm a survivor thriver, and I've had a great life. I put my fears aside. I finished my nursing degree at Cal State the same year of your attack. And then I spent 30 years in the Air Force, achieving the rank of colonel. Yes, evil one, I turned my pain into power and my mess into a message by facilitating groups of women that had been sexually assaulted and volunteering at our Rape Crisis Center. All very worthwhile activities. Who knows, though, what I might have accomplished had my life not had been interrupted by your vicious attack. I have a loving husband of 26 years and 2 amazing, successful sons. So you didn't destroy my life. In fact, your cowardly, cruel, and sick behavior enabled me to meet so many wonderful folks, other victims, their families, investigators, detectives, TV personalities, etc. And my life has been so enriched by their friendship, and my life is so much more meaningful now because of it. If it wasn't for the trauma I endured, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I am proud of what I have accomplished. I am blessed beyond words. I see your eyes are closing. Yes, my wounds have been healed, but my scars remain. Hearing a helicopter overhead, seeing a ski mask, and hearing someone yell or say, "Shut up," will forever cause me anxiety. My comfort at those times is remembering that you are finally going to prison and will remain there until you die. Oh, and by the way, DeAngelo, do you remember the roast you had cooking in the oven the day you were arrested? Well, too bad you didn't get to enjoy it. because many of your victims will be enjoying a delicious roast every 24 April in remembrance of your capture, unless there is a divine intervention. And by the way, I want you to know that I was just sick to my stomach listening to the graphic details of your assaults during the hearing. Your language, your behavior were just deplorable. Have you no mercy? Have you no remorse? Not only does my heart go out to all of the women you raped and the dear souls you so viciously murdered, but also to your former wife, your children, your grandchildren. They don't deserve to live a life full of shame due to your despicable actions. DeAngelo, they too are your victims. Think about it, DeAngelo. They too are your victims. Well, you know, a quarter of me, being a Christian, I want to say to you, may God have mercy on your soul. But then there's another 3/4 of me that just want to tell you, buddy, to rot in hell. Well, I want to thank all of my supporters that are here today. I want to thank everyone that's worked so hard on getting us all here. And I'm just blessed to have supporters at home, supporters here. And I also want to especially thank a friend that's accompanying me today. And that friend is Bonnie. Take your mask off. If Bonnie were able to speak, Joe, she would want you to know that as just a teenager 50 years ago, she broke her engagement to you when she realized that you would become manipulative and abusive. When you thought you could kidnap her and force her to marry you, even a gun pointed at her face could not make her choose you. When she saw who you really were, she was done with you. I can see that I Hate You, Bonnie was a result of your frustration because you lost control over her, but she bears none of that responsibility for your violent choices. And we consider her one of us, the sister survivors of your malicious attacks. When you are wheeled away to begin your sentence, you'll return in Bonnie's life to that forgotten and insignificant place, gone from her life forever. Amen.
Thank you, ma'am. My understanding is we're going to go forward with San Joaquin County. Is that fair?
Yes, Your Honor. It'll be San Joaquin County, specifically Jane Doe number 39 and Jane Doe number 17, and the representatives from San Joaquin County District Attorney's Office will be here.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning, Your Honor.
Let the record reflect Mr. DeAngelo is present with counsel. Can the attorneys that represent the people from the County of San Joaquin please state your names for the record?
Good morning, Your Honor. Tori Verber-Salazar, District Attorney on behalf of the people of San Joaquin County.
Christine Reed, Assistant District Attorney, San Joaquin County.
Very good. Thank you. On June 29th, Mr. DeAngelo admitted to committing the following uncharged acts: kidnapping with intent to commit robbery, Jane Doe number 39, having occurred on March 18th, 1978 in the County of San Joaquin, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. Rape of Jane Doe number 39, having occurred on March 18th, 1978 in the County of San Joaquin, violation of Penal Code Section 261. Robbery of Jane Doe number 39 and John Doe number 17, having occurred on March 18th, 1978 in the County of San Joaquin, a violation of Penal Code Section 211. False imprisonment of Jane Doe number 39 and John Doe number 17, having occurred on March 18th, 1978 in the county of San Joaquin, a violation of Penal Code Section 236. Is there any victim or victim's family member that wish to be heard as to that uncharged act?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'm Gay Hardwick, formerly of Stockton, California. While living there in the first home my husband and I purchased together, where we had so much hope for our future. On March 18th, 1978, Joe DeAngelo attacked us while we were sleeping. He kidnapped me from my bed. He raped me repeatedly. He sodomized me. He forced oral copulation. He stole the few precious pieces of jewelry that I owned, which were gold rings given to me by my brother and my parents to commemorate my graduation from college the year before. I was the first girl in my family to graduate from college, and so those pieces were important to me. He ate from my refrigerator and he drank 2 beers while I lay bound and blindfolded, unclothed and freezing on the hardwood floor in front of an open door in the cold March night. He ransacked our home, and in between he tormented me with threats of death for me and my loved one should I make a sound or resist in any way. The aftermath of this attack has been with me for 42 years. That's a very long life sentence for somebody who had done nothing to deserve such hatred and violence and desecration of my body. To illustrate the lasting impact of this event, I have 3 clean sheets of paper here. All 3, if they represent lives, have unlimited potential in this world. These paper lives might serve to hold the written formula of a life-saving scientific breakthrough, a beautiful poem, a soul-moving watercolor. Certainly they would carry words of love and comfort and encouragement and shared memories to their families, both the younger and the older generations. This life, paper number 1, was never touched by Joe DeAngelo. To this day, it remains clean and pristine and able to sweep itself clean of all of its previous endeavors and start new ones if it chooses. It served the world to its fullest capacity and still has much to give. This life, no, it's okay. Paper number 2 was murdered by Joe DeAngelo. It's a life violently taken by him while satisfying his perverted, sadistic urges. This life might have contributed so much to our world, brought love and comfort and those shared memories to its grieving family members. But instead, this life, so full of potential, was turned into a broken dream, stolen from us all by this monster, leaving a void the size of the soul in the lives of all of those that loved that soul. This paper represents my life. On March 17th, 1978, it looked like this, ready to take on my hopes and dreams, my aspirations. At the age of 24, I was working as a marketing director and a broker for a real estate development firm. I had a lucrative income of my own. I was independent, and I had a bright future. I was deciding whether I might go back and get my MBA or whether I might go to law school. I was in love with a young attorney, my man from Kentucky here, and our future seemed limitless. But then on March 18th, Joe DeAngelo broke into our home, and using his tactical police training, he was able to wake us from a deep sleep with a blinding light in our eyes, under threats of imminent death from his .357 Magnum pointed at our heads. We were bound and blindfolded, and you already know the rest of the story. I survived those repeated attacks, the hours of terror, the understanding that during those hours there was a purely evil presence in our home, a diabolical, depraved, mumbling, and weeping being in human form. Finally, he was gone. And though I had been certain that I and my loved one would die, we did not. However, our lives were never the same. This life, my life, would never again be like paper number one. My life was now full of creases and wrinkles. And no matter how hard I tried to iron them all away and press them and smooth the lines, make it function, my life would never be the same again. There's no way my paper life could ever again be like that paper number one. So what are these creases and lines, you may ask? Why after 42 years can't I just get over it? PTSD has played a huge role. Some of the following are the effects of PTSD. First, the sociological impacts of sexual assault that actually influence the development of your PTSD. Victim blaming attitudes, the perpetration of rape myths, not just back in the 1970s, but today as well. Here are some comments made by elected officials in our country in just the past few years. Clayton Williams of Texas: rape is kind of like the weather. If it's inevitable, relax and enjoy it. Todd Aiken of Missouri: if it's a legitimate rape, is there a legitimate rape? The female body has ways to shut that thing down. Rick Santorum, U.S. Senator, former U.S. Senator, and candidate for president: rape victims should make the best of a bad situation. Richard Murdoch of Indiana: even when life begins in that horrible situation of rape, that's something God intended, not the attacker. The blame's not placed on the attacker. Jody Lobenberg of Texas: in the emergency room, they have what's called rape kits where a woman can get cleaned out. Lawrence Lockman of Maine: if a woman has the right to an abortion, why shouldn't a man be free to use his superior strength to force himself on a woman? At least the rapist's pursuit of sexual freedom doesn't, in most cases, result in anyone's death. These are widely published and circulated quotations, and you can see these individuals saying these words on YouTube if you just Google them. Expressions of ignorance such as these are so damaging to rape victims like me, and they serve to dismiss rape as some kind of boys will be boys transgression. Even as I was writing my statement, our present administration, through Betsy DeVos, has enacted into law changes to the Title IX protections for students K through 12 and college campuses that force victims of sexual assault to face their attacker and be cross-examined, which will most likely result in fewer rape victims being willing to report these crimes because they don't want to be traumatized a second time. The trusted advisor that's allowed to question these students can be, for example, the attacker's disgruntled parent. None of the new procedures are trauma-informed in any way. Victims are guaranteed that they may change classes or dorms to avoid their attacker, but again, these are victims, not the accused, being forced to make adaptations. What if this was your college or high school student? This is just where we are in 2020. We haven't come a long way. Interestingly, my personal experience has been that if I describe our attack as armed robbery, bound and held at gunpoint, people are usually supportive. They're so glad you weren't killed. They're understanding that they would have been also lucky to survive if they had been held at gunpoint and robbed. They don't ask, why didn't you fight back and stop the robber and save your money? Because they would have followed directions to save themselves too. But when it's rape at gunpoint, often the response is, I never would have let that happen. Really? There wasn't anything you could do? Just recently, someone asked me, how did you come to know this person? Which feels like they must think I have been engaging in some kind of risky behavior to bring this on myself. Where were you? What were you doing? What were you wearing when this happened? Are still so commonly asked. Then there's my personal favorite. Well, at least you weren't hurt. There are also those who just don't believe what happened really occurred, or that I must be mistaken. And you can see the doubt in their eyes. I don't know why that is, but it does happen. And my conclusion is that it's just plain too disturbing for their mind to have to believe the terror and the truth of it. Because then, if it could happen to me, it could happen to them. It could happen to anyone. Besides the sociological impacts that contributed to my PTSD, there's the very real physiological and psychological changes brought about by the trauma of James DeAngelo's attacks. There are the feelings of needing to always be hyper alert, nightmares, sleeplessness, flashbacks, social anxiety, inability to be or stay alone. Imagine not being able to enjoy a quiet moment by yourself. I became the Black Hawk helicopter of all parents. I remember an incident 2 decades after my attack where I thought I was fully recovered. My husband and 4 children were in Monterey on vacation, but I had returned to attend a mandatory evening class for my credentialing program. I was actually looking forward to some personal time alone. I had purchased Chinese takeout and I was ready for a well-earned quiet evening in our home. But as I sat down on the couch in my PJs to enjoy my food and watch a movie, my eyes strayed to the kitchen counter where there was a roll of duct tape sitting. And there were measured lengths set out ready for use. And my triggered response to this was the certainty in my mind that there was someone in the house ready to bind me with these tapes. I didn't know where they'd come from, and I ran to my car in terror in my PJs, and I fled to my dad's house, shaking, trembling, and where I spent the night in my father's care in my childhood bed, while my takeout was left to spoil on our family room table where I left it. And this was 2 decades later. As it would turn out, I would later learn that while I had left earlier on vacation with 3 of our kids, my husband had come along a few hours later, staying to coach a junior basketball league for one of our kids. Not yet having uniforms, he had used the duct tape to fashion numbers for their t-shirts. And what I had seen were the remnants of his efforts. But for me, returning to attend my class, it was the kind of stupid, brain-triggering event that could still plague me so many years later. There are chemical changes in the brain that can damage the hippocampus. The neural and endocrine systems are affected. The body has higher levels of cortisol. Adrenaline rushes. Cortisol has widespread action, and its dysregulation affects other neural systems, leading to my inappropriate fear reactions and persistent mild depression. And that can sometimes escalate. I still don't know how much my immune system has ultimately been damaged. These things don't ever really go away. Just when you think you're okay, a triggering event can occur, and you find yourself right back in the middle of a panic attack or an unreasonably aggressive response to something relatively minor, or a series of unexplained and unrelenting nightmares. PTSD, a rewiring of my central nervous system, as my psychiatrist described it, contributed to a lot of these creases and wrinkles in my life. Other things, such as trust issues, body image issues, lost opportunities that I just didn't have the energy to pursue any longer, such as law school or graduate work, are also a part of my wrinkled life. I left my career because I could no longer cope with the stress and anxiety of traveling and being exposed to so many strangers on a daily basis in order to do my job. I stayed home for 10 years, where I felt safer. Finally, at the age of 42, I entered a teacher credentialing program and became an elementary school teacher. At least I wasn't afraid of children. I used all my energy to keep my dream of marriage and family strong, and I built the best second career I could for 21 years before retiring. But it shouldn't have been this hard. I shouldn't have had to make constant adaptations to compensate for the wrinkles and the creases on my life's page. My choices should not have been impacted by this devastating event in my life. It's taken all my energy to make this page function and achieve. Still, I've written a good life on it, a happy family on my page, and I've been married to a saint of a man here for 41 years as of yesterday. Through it all, he has supported me emotionally, physically, financially, and in every other imaginable way through our life together. Because that's what a real man does. Around 2012, nearing the end of my teaching career, I was suddenly contacted by Paul Holes, who was an investigator with Contra Costa County. This was when I learned about the murders that had been committed and their connection to the East Area rapist attacks. I had never heard from my local San Joaquin County law enforcement again at all since the week of the attack in 1978. It was a terrible shock, but I agreed to cooperate with him the best I could as he convinced me that the case was solvable. Previously ironed out wrinkles in my life resurfaced as I dredged back through my traumatic memories in an effort to help law enforcement find the perpetrator of these crimes. If Stockton law enforcement would do nothing with my case, maybe this guy from Contra Costa could. In my heart, I never could get over the feeling that my attacker was still living among us, enjoying his life scot-free while I struggled to make the most of my damaged life's page. And he was. It wasn't easy to dig back 35 years, and it caused both my husband and me additional anguish. But if he could be caught, I reasoned it was worth it. Then came the arrest. No one from my jurisdiction had the decency to let me know that Joe DeAngelo had been arrested. My 2 adult daughters found out from the news media and called me. Again, another traumatic development. Then ensued these past 2 years of realizing that victims in some jurisdictions are kept fully apprised of the developments in the case, while my experience has been deflection by my local officials, refusal to press the very charges Joe DeAngelo has now admitted to, and massive communication failures. Every contact with my local officials up to the announcement of the plea deal has been initiated by me, not an email or a phone call, unless in response to my own efforts to stay informed. For the past 2 years, I've had to advocate for myself and inform my own deputy district attorney of developments in the case that she had not been informed of. But thanks to the strong network of survivors in Sacramento, Ventura, and Contra Costa, I was. All of these things have affected my life by causing additional stress and anxiety, as I clearly saw how victims were treated differently depending on their jurisdiction. And I've had more conversations lately. It's not just San Joaquin County, it's other outlying counties too. The lack of cooperation between jurisdictions that has been mentioned by many members of law enforcement, such as Carol Daly and Detective Crompton, was real in the 1970s. And my experience is that it is still quite evident today. Don't get me wrong. I am pleased at the final resolution of this case, the guilty pleas and the admissions of guilt that are so very important to all of us survivors. But my point is that I know many of the victims personally, and we all know that some of us have not been treated equally. We can and we should do better. More wrinkles and creases that I've had to deal with. Finally, I want to discuss the absolute gut punch it was after the arrest to learn that I had been brutalized and raped by a full-time police officer. I've always had great respect for our officers and the work they do that endangers their lives every day. I've managed to continue to trust in them. To learn that DeAngelo, sworn to serve and protect, used his training and skill set to terrorize and rape and murder for years was staggering. Not only that, but this devious psychopath pursued a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice, not to serve and protect others, but to enable him to be a very prolific, self-preserving criminal. He sought employment in the field where he would be least likely to be suspected. And the ultimate betrayal, he built a family structure around himself to further disguise and hide his evil, bloodthirsty, diabolical pursuits. And I feel so badly for his daughters and his granddaughter. This epiphany exposed his betrayal, not just of me, but of every single person in this room who has devoted their life to law enforcement and the legal system. He has purposely defecated on almost every single tenet and principle that normal people would hold in the highest regard. I find it so ironic that DeAngelo sits in these proceedings one after another, relying on the very professionals, the judge, the attorneys, and officers to protect and defend him that he has betrayed and disgraced. I have one final paper to share with you. This one was once a clean, crisp blank page full of possibilities that might have benefited the world. But it's today a toxic, steaming, evil mass of human waste, best kept sealed tightly. And there's no excuse for this. So I get that he may have been an abused child, that he experienced sad things in his life, that he had to move around a lot, that his fiance jilted him, but a lot of people go through bad times and they don't decide to be serial rapists and murderers. I and many others like me were traumatized within an inch of our lives, and we did not decide to become serial rapists and murderers. For 2 years now, I've witnessed DeAngelo devolve, dissolve, and decompose through his sheer will into this seemingly puny coward before us today. During this time, he's somehow been allowed to liquidate his home and his personal assets and transfer them to his family. It's my view that instead, all of those assets should have been impounded by the state of California to defray the costs of his legal proceedings and his incarceration. He has bargained for and obtained the removal of the death penalty, though if there was ever anyone more deserving of death, I can't imagine who. I'm certain that there is method in his madness and that his plan is to weaken himself in order to be assigned his life without parole sentence in some prison nursing home for old murdering psychopaths, where he thinks he will be treated more like a patient than an inmate. It is my fervent prayer that the court and the Department of Corrections will see through his ruse and realize that he has been treated more than fairly. He deserves the fullest, longest sentencing that this court can muster, along with the recommendation that he be located as far away from his victims as possible. My wish would be that he serve his death in prison sentence within the cold walls of Pelican Bay, as far away as possible, because all of us survivors deserve the peace of knowing that DeAngelo is gone for good. We survivors can continue to try and smooth out the wrinkles in our lives. And as my fellow survivor Trish quoted recently, try to make the rest of our lives the best of our lives. We deserve that opportunity. This is opportunity that was turned into ugly choices. And when I was making this paper sculpture and I ran it through my paper shredder, doing that to Joe's life felt pretty good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sir.
Well, my name is Robert Hardwick, and this is my beautiful wife, Gay, who I love today as much as I did when the attack took place. On March the 17th, the day of the attack, I was living with my beautiful girlfriend in a home we had just purchased months earlier. We had not yet married. I had graduated from McGeorge Law School, and I had worked about 1.5 years as a public defender in San Joaquin County. I'd progressed on to, I left the public defender's office I took a job with one of the best private attorneys, a small firm in Stockton, and I worked directly under Mr. Maxwell Freeman, who I consider one of the best attorneys in San Joaquin County. My wife-to-be had graduated from UOP, and she was working as marketing director. At the time, on March the 17th, before the attack, we felt like all young people want to feel, to be successful, to be productive, and to be moving forward with somebody you love. We had all those things. Then on March 18th, 1998, Joe Angelo appeared in our life. He broke into our home. He tied me up at gunpoint. He assaulted and raped Gay repeatedly. It was terrifying for me because I was totally helpless. I could do nothing to protect her. Gay was a victim of a horrible assault. And I was a victim because I would have to live for the rest of my life knowing I was helpless to prevent this attack. After attack, we would go to bed at night hoping to get a complete night's rest. However, if we heard anything in the middle of the night, we would proceed to our friend's house a few doors away where they would welcome us on their couch in the family room. So we could be able to feel halfway safe and be able to work the next day. This house happened countless of times in the months that followed the attack. We could never feel secure in our own home. So finally we decided it was futile and we put the house for sale. We moved to a new home the next year. We got married and we had our first child. That first child was approximately 3 years after our attack. The marriage is about 1.5 years after the attack. Even after the birth of our first child, my wife, Gay, was having severe anxiety problems and stress levels. And because of this and a career that she could not handle anymore and the birth of a child, we separated. We lived apart for approximately 6 months. And then after that 6 months, we realized that we loved each other and we were not going to let this incident destroy our relationship. Our family grew to 4 wonderful children, 2 boys and 2 girls. All of them are educators. 3 are teachers and 1 is a school psychologist, and they all have master's degrees, and they are fine children. Again, we had decided that we weren't going to let Mr. DeAngelo, this gentleman sitting here, define our life. And we were not going to be cast aside because of this attack. The hardest thing for me over the years was for me to observe my wife having anxiety attacks and panic attacks, knowing there was absolutely nothing I could do except to support her. I can't erase her traumas. Joe Angelo is an animal of the worst kind. How the Lord could create such a horrible human being, I do not know. At the June 29th hearing, I was horrified, hearing in detail the crimes and the violent acts that were committed against so many people and their families. I wish I could do something to eliminate their grief, but I can't. However, I do have one recommendation to the court. I think everybody here, if you're involved in athletics or anything, have played fantasy golf, fantasy baseball, fantasy football. Well, I have a fantasy sentence for Mr. DeAngelo. And the fantasy sentence is, and I know the court can't do this, grant this wish, but this is my fantasy sentence: that Mr. DeAngelo be incarcerated in the toughest prison in the state with the worst of inmates. He not be in a medical facility, he not be in solitary confinement, and he not be under 24-hour protection. And that at least 3 or 4 nights a week, magically, inmates can gain access to his cell. He can be awakened in the night by masked inmates with a bright light pointed at his face, so he cannot realize what is going on. These inmates will then be carrying shanks. They wouldn't have a knife in jail, wouldn't have a .357 Magnum that was put to my head or her head. They would have shanks that would be made in prison. Mr. DeAngelo would be bound, blindfolded, stripped, and forced to lay on a cold cell floor for a period of 2 to 3 hours. His attacker or attackers would repeatedly rape him like these women were raped. And in between the attacks, these rapists would sit there, have a cold drink, maybe a Dr. Pepper, like we were heard Mr. DeAngelo likes, a Coke, a beer, etc. They will also have their favorite Subway sandwich. Could be a ham, turkey, or a combo sandwich. Then after the rapes would take place, Mr. DeAngelo would be forced to turn over and sit up and orally copulate his attackers, just like he had these women do. Every woman and every attack on every woman was the same. During the attacks, he would be told if he didn't comply, he would be killed. This threat of killing would be idle in my mind because I wouldn't want to give him the easy way out. I wouldn't not want him to die. I would want Mr. DeAngelo to suffer for the rest of his life like the victims, the rape victims, have suffered the last 42 years. The purpose of him knowing every morning when he got up that because the attackers were masked like the women's were, he would not know who was his friend, who was the attacker. He would be in the same position as the women that he attacked. I would like Mr. DeAngelo to go to sleep at night, not knowing whether he was going to have a good night, meaning no attacker, or a bad night, attackers. It is imperative for justice to be achieved and these attacks continue for the rest of his life, which statistically would probably be no more than 10 to 15 years because of his life expectancy. That's far less than the 40 plus years that the victims have suffered terror. Like my wife has suffered with this for going on 42 years now. This is what I realize. This is a wish list, and I know it can't happen, but again, this is a fantasy sentence. So I say this one thing to future inmates of Joe DeAngelo. If you are listening, please remember what I have said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe the next county to be heard is Alameda.
May we have a moment, Your Honor?
Certainly. Ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we are ready to proceed to Alameda County.
And I see that it's listed as District Attorney Nancy O'Malley. Will she be joining us?
No, Your Honor, I will be reading on behalf of Alameda County District Attorney's Office and the victim in that case.
All right, very good. This is Ron Calendar here to hear victim impacts as to Alameda Uncharged Acts. On June 29th, the defendant admitted to committing the Uncharged Act as follows, kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe, number 50, having occurred on April 4th, 1979 in the county of Alameda. In violation of Penal Code Section 209, rape of Jane Doe, number 50, having occurred on April 4th, 1979 in the county of Alameda. Violation of Penal Code Section 261, robbery of Jane Doe, number 50, and John Doe, number 22, having occurred on April 4th, 1979 in the county of Alameda. Violation of Penal Code Section 211, false imprisonment Jane Doe number 50 and John Doe number 22, having occurred April 4th, 1979 in the county of Alameda. Violation Penal Code Section 236. My understanding, Mr. Ho, you will be reading a victim impact. Is that true?
Yes, Your Honor. This is a statement of Robert Brooks from Alameda County.
Thank you.
To whom it may concern, I feel that confronting Joseph DeAngelo in person would be the wrong move for me. I would think it would be a waste of my time. I believe he is a cold stone predator and feels no remorse for his crimes. Why feed his knowledge that he is still in the heads and tormenting his victims? The innocent lives that he took and changed are still affecting all the families that were directly affected by his crimes, even all of these years later. Children, brothers, sisters, grandchildren, cousins, in-laws, and family friends. Even the law enforcement personnel that were involved in the case. One person changed all these lives. Look at the communities where these crimes occurred. All of these people are now changed and their lives have been changed. He took the innocence and comfort of living in what most thought were safe, good neighborhoods. One man took all of that from all of these people. This man does not deserve to be a part of society. He does not belong on this planet. He forfeited those rights years ago. He showed no remorse, no regard for others. To give him any more attention, to spend any more time and money to keep him alive is a travesty. Those funds could be used for other worthwhile causes. My impact statement is Joseph DeAngelo has earned the right to die. Robert Bob Brooks.
Thank you, Counsel. Does that conclude the victim statements from Alameda County?
Yes, Your Honor, it does. And the next set is from Yolo County, and we have a victim advocate who will read that statement when Your Honor is ready.
All right. Are you representing Yolo County?
Yes, there's the advocate that will represent Yolo County. Your Honor.
All right. So let me make a record as to the Uncharged Acts from Yolo County. On June 29th, Mr. DeAngelo admitted to the following Uncharged Acts. Kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 43, having occurred on June 24th, 1978 in the county of Yolo. Violation Penal Code Section 209. Rape of Jane Doe number 43, having occurred on June 24th, 1978 in the county of Yolo. Violation Penal Code Section 261. Robbery of Jane Doe number 43 and John Doe number 20, having occurred on June 24th, 1978 in the county of Yolo. A violation of Penal Code Section 211. False imprisonment of Jane Doe number 43 and John Doe number 20, having occurred June 24th, 1978, county of Yolo. Violation Penal Code Section 236. My understanding we have a victim's advocate is going to read a victim impact from Jane Doe number 43. Yeah.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Laura Valdez, and I'm a victim advocate with the Yolo County District Attorney's Office. I'm here representing the multiple survivors of Yolo County, but in particular, to provide a voice for these survivors that have entrusted their words to me. Dear Honorable Judge, we would like to be identified as the Yolo County couple. I was raped by the East Area rapist in the early morning of July 23rd, 1978. I would like to make a victim impact statement to the court. For 42 years, we have lived with the memories of the night we were suddenly awakened by a man standing in our bedroom doorway, shouting orders with a flashlight and a gun in hand, threatening death if we resisted. We were furious that this man ruined our innocence, angry that the memories persist, frustrated that there are triggers that still remind us of this horror, and tired of enduring 40 years of fear that he might return to kill us as he threatened. But one of the police officers who hovered around us that night said, "Don't let him change your lives." So we persevered, pushed the intrusive memories away, and carried on. Traumatized, but surviving, even thriving. Then one morning, 2 years ago, my husband checked his computer for daily news, as usual, and came to me with a big hug and whispered in my ear, "They caught him." We both felt an instant lightness in our hearts, a lifting of the fear and rage we had felt for all those years. Astonished by the news. We had not thought the East Area rapist would ever be found. We want to thank the whole law enforcement team, especially the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office, for their persistence in trying to find this perpetrator who caused so much trauma and grief for us and for so many other victims. They did not let the cases be forgotten. It is truly gratifying to have the closure to know that the East Area rapist is finally behind bars. Please don't ever let him out. Sincerely, the Yolo County couple.
Thank you, ma'am. We're proceeding to Santa Clara.
Yes, Your Honor. And in regards to Santa Clara, there is a representative.
We need a moment.
Yes, Your Honor, we'll need a moment to bring in the victim.
Very good, thank you. Folks, we're going to take a break around 10:30, change out court reporters. You ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Martin, we're on the calendar here to hear from the victims or victims' family from Santa Clara. Mr. DeAngelo is present with counsel. Can I have the representative from the County of Santa Clara please state her name for the record?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Assistant District Attorney Terry Harmon on behalf of the people in the County of Santa Clara.
Good morning, ma'am. Let me read the list of uncharged acts as it relates to Santa Clara. June 29th, 2020, Mr. DeAngelo admitted to the following uncharged acts. Kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe, number 46, having occurred on December 2nd, 1978 in the County of Santa Clara, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. Rape of Jane Doe, number 46, having occurred on December 2nd, 1978 in the County of Santa Clara, a violation of Penal Code Section 261. Robbery of Jane Doe, number 46, and John Doe, number 21, having occurred December 2nd, 1978 in the County of Santa Clara, violation of Penal Code Section 211, false imprisonment of Jane Doe, number 46, and John Doe, number 21, having occurred December 2nd, 1978 in the County of Santa Clara, violation of Penal Code Section 236. Is there any victim or victim family member that wish to be heard as to those uncharged acts?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would first like to address the trial process. There has been a tremendous lack of communication since the arrest. I have never been informed of the developments in this case, such as the hearing, dates, time, and where I might have attended. Never an email, text message, or phone call. All communications were the result of my initiating contact with victim advocates in Sacramento. I never received any information from the Santa Clara DA. It is wrong that victims in other counties were left in the dark, while Sacramento victims were fully informed all the time. This was very unfortunate. Now, I would like to address Mr. DeAngelo. Your Honor, I would like Mr. DeAngelo to know The woman he violated to refresh his memory of one of his victims who he may have thought he broke but did not. My name is Joanne Meow. I thought I turned it off. My name is Joanne Meow. You assaulted my husband and myself the night of December 3rd, 1978. Do you remember entering my bedroom, blinding my eyes with a flashlight as you kept pounding on the bed, yelling, "All I want is your fucking money"? Do you remember me screaming at the top of my lungs and you yelling and screaming at us that you had a gun and you would shoot us? Do you remember me flinging my body on top of my startled husband to protect him from you? Do you remember tying our hands and feet so tight with many of our own shoelaces? Our hands and feet were numb for many, many, many weeks afterwards. Do you remember going into our kitchen and tearing up kitchen towels to blindfold us and gag us? Do you remember untying my feet and dragging me to the family room? Do you remember raping me? Do you remember holding a knife to my throat as you stuck your disgusting penis in my mouth? What I really wanted to do was to bite your penis off your body, but my hands were tied behind my back, blindfolded, and with that knife at my throat. Well, Mr. DeAngelo, you victimized me, but I am not a victim. I want to tell you what I was constantly thinking during the rape itself. I kept on saying to myself, you are not going to get me. You are not going to get me. You are not going to get me. I choose to live my life. You are just one of those weak, powerless men who use their physical strength to hurt women. This act of rape and terror you did to my husband and myself was not sex. It was totally a power trip. To what, pray tell? To ruin my life? To make me afraid of life? To make me afraid to be alone? To make me distrust men? Well, Mr. DeAngelo, it did not work on me. Much to your dismay, I've weathered through this horrible experience in my then young life with even more confidence, perseverance, strength, and endurance. Your illusion of power to overcome me backfired, Mr. DeAngelo. I chose to come through being a stronger, confident woman and live my life normally and not have fear dictate my life. How dare you, and how dare every man who perpetrates this lowly form of aggression towards women be even allowed to walk on this earth? I do not know your history, Mr. DeAngelo. However, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm guessing somewhere in your life you experienced great pain and suffering. Therefore, you felt the compulsion to hurt others. Killers are not born. They are made. I'm dying to know who harmed you and made you this way. Please do tell, because therein lies the real perpetrator. As for forgiveness, I am not there yet and not sure if I can ever get there. I want to release the past and move forward. So I want to forgive that little person in you whose behavior is not what God intended. However, I also want you to pay for your many, many violent crimes so there will be justice for myself and countless, countless other women, husbands, boyfriends, children, and families of those who were so senselessly murdered. Joseph DeAngelo, whether you understand or acknowledge the depth of your depravity, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you will spend the rest of your life in prison, and I survived. I'm a survivor who became very resilient and a very, very fortunate human being.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wish to be heard as to that Uncharged Act?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel.
Your Honor, next up will be Contra Costa County.
All right, very good. Thank you.
May we have a moment, Your Honor, set up?
Certainly. Are you having an issue? One second, folks. We're just having a difficulty to make sure the audience members can see. All right, thank you. We're on calendar here, and we're scheduled to hear from the victims and victims' family of crimes and uncharged acts committed by Mr. DeAngelo in the county of Contra Costa. The sentencing will actually occur on August 21st. Mr. DeAngelo is present with counsel. Can I have the attorneys that represent the county of Contra Costa please state your names for the record?
Good morning, Your Honor. Dinah Beckton, District Attorney, representing Contra Costa County
morning,
for the
ma'am.
people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Chief Assistant Venus Denise Johnson, Contra Costa County for the people.
Good morning. On June 29th, Mr. DeAngelo admitted to the following uncharged acts. Rape of Jane Doe, number 47, having occurred on December 8th, 1978 in the county of Contra Costa, violation of Penal Code Section 261. False imprisonment of Jane Doe, number 47, having occurred December 8th, 1978 in the county of Contra Costa, violation of Penal Code Section 236. Is there any victim or victim's family member or member of the victim's family that wish to be heard as to that uncharged act?
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Thank you to everyone that made this day possible. My name is Gladys Reeder. According to Wikipedia, I'm victim number 43, but I prefer to think of myself as Gladys Reeder, survivor number 43. I chose to make a statement today because I survived your attack on me in December 9th of 1978. After you raped me, you left me powerless, bound hand and foot, and blindfolded. 40 plus years later, it's now you that is shackled, handcuffed, powerless, and no control over your life. You left me blindfolded, but today my eyes are wide open, and I see you for the monster that you are. You took my driver's license, but you did not take my identity. You took jewelry from me, but you did not take anything of real value. You did not take my resilience. You did not take my strength, my family, or my friends. You left me broken and alone, but here I stand. I survived and I thrived because of the love and the support of my family and my friends, and I can never thank them enough for that. My next door neighbor rode in the police car with me to the hospital for an examination, body fingerprinting, and to collect DNA. My friend, who is here today, went to the house where that horror had taken place to pick up clothes and personal things for me to wear after the hospital visit. She took me to her home to stay with her as long as I needed. She rode Bart with me so that I did not have to be afraid to go to work, although she had absolutely no reason to go to the city except to make sure that I was okay. The rapist knew who I was, but I did not know who he was, and that haunted me. She helped me not only to function, but to laugh again. She's been with me from the time I left the hospital until the sentencing. At the time of the rape, she went across town to help me. Today, she went across the country to stand with me. What a friend. Thank you. Now, here we are, all strong women, not victims, and having our say to a madman. And as for the depraved one here, he no longer has control, nor does he have any power over me or any part of his own life. I will not devote any more words or thoughts to a worthless scum that could do such despicable things. I'm moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We're ready to proceed to the next charge.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. On June 29th, the defendant entered guilty plea to count 23, charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 10, having occurred on October 7th, 1978 in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted to the following uncharged acts: rape of Jane Doe number 10, having occurred on October 7th, 1978 in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 261. Robbery of Jane Doe number 10 and John Doe number 9, having occurred on October 7th, 1978 in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 211. False imprisonment of Jane Doe number 10 and John Doe number 9, having occurred on October 7th, 1978 in the county of Contra Costa, a violation of Penal Code Section 236. Does anybody wish to be heard as to count 23 or any of the uncharged acts?
I will read the statement on behalf of John Doe number 9 and Jane Doe number 10, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you, counsel. You may proceed.
On an October evening in 1978, our lives went from the tasks and concerns for being a responsible, caring parent of a 1-year-old, concerns for career and life direction, to a fight for our lives and the survival of our family. It would change how we looked at our world. Where might we go to be safe? And how would we respond to the trauma of personal violation sexual and physical assault, and personal humiliation. There would be questions of who we could trust and if we had done something to bring this upon ourselves. What could we have done differently? Who would do this and why? How would we close our eyes at night, now knowing that being vulnerable could cost us our lives and the lives of those we loved? I struggled with the personal guilt of should I have done more to protect my wife, our family? Was I a coward for not responding more aggressively, unpredictably? Or was I an example of self-control, discipline, doing what I needed to do moment by moment to stay alive and keep my family alive? Why wasn't I more observant of my surroundings? Why couldn't I remember the license plate of the vehicle on the side of the house? I struggled with nightmares of violent, brutal acts that I wanted to inflict on this cowardly individual. I felt hate that I had never known and wanted him to suffer and feel my pain. It was pure evil. We struggled as a couple and nearly lost our marriage. We were two wounded people attempting to find a way to heal, support, and love each other when each was trying to reconcile their own anger, fear, emotional and physical trauma. We each met with psychologists in an attempt to work through our issues. We struggled, got alarm systems, didn't go to bed without checking behind doors and in closets. We knew that we couldn't stay in the home where we were traumatized, so I took a job in Fresno, where we moved, hoping to close this terrible chapter in our lives. We were committed and determined not to let these hours in October of 1978 define who we were and what we were to become. With continued spiritual work, periods of counseling, many self-help books, and couples workshops in combination with the tincture of time, the pain was not as intense. The nightmares weren't as frequent, and we were able to continue with what I would consider a healthy and normal life. However, our family was forever changed. My sister won't go to bed without checking her doors and making sure she's not followed home. My niece won't keep her drapes open on the first floor because she's afraid of an intruder. And yes, we still have an alarm system in our new home. I check doors before bed and lock behind doors and in closets. I have a shotgun under my bed, and I run simulations of what I would do during the night if he were to come back. 40 years later, I wonder what we were meant to learn from this experience. How blessed we are to be alive. What does it mean to forgive ourselves and others? What does it mean to be Christian, to turn the other cheek? If we are all created in God's image, how do I find that image in Mr. DeAngelo? If God is present in each of us, how can someone be so evil? I'm sure that those hours in October did not define me or my family, but it did change us, our view of the world, and a deep realization of what evil the human spirit is capable of. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Well done, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give defense counsel a break, as well as switch out court reporter and give a chance for press to take a break as well. It's approximately, let's call it 25 after. We'll try to reconvene 20 to 11, and we'll proceed until we're finished. We have approximately a couple more incidences to hear from, and then we'll have a full day tomorrow. Thank you. We're in recess.